I'm Tim Ventura, here with Russell Anderson from Applied Electrogravitics. Russell has worked on a number of projects in the last few years, including up to a 9-foot size Beamship device, and his current project, a glass Searle effect generator. Russell, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, Tim. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, why don't you tell me a little bit about your Beamships? Now, your largest is 9 feet in size, right?
Yeah, largest is 9 feet, and mostly I use the 6-footer as my largest one. The 9-footer is marginal on flight with the power supply, the commercial power supply that I use for the most part for testing, because it has metering for current as well as voltage. But mostly I fly the 6-footer. The 9-footer is just too large to fly indoors, and outdoors you have to disassemble
Oh,
and that sort of thing. But each of the panels, yeah, is 9 foot.
okay. Well, and I remember seeing a video that you'd sent me a while ago, and it's actually one of the most impressive videos that I've seen. Strangely enough, you actually had, I believe it was the 6 or 9 footer in your apartment with a stadium
That's
size,
the 6-footer. Yeah, the 6-footer. 9-footer is just too big.
and you had
Rents
a
out. It have too much delicate stuff, and the field just blows out electronics after a while. All solid state electronics starts. It's not good for them.
now you had a fog generator going also, and that was the thing that really,
Yeah, yeah. That's just a cheap old Radio Shack concert fog machine.
yeah. So
And
in the video that I'd seen, there was the lifter flying, or the beam ship flying, and then just roiling clouds of smoke just drifting through the apartment. I was waiting, actually, it almost looked like a scene from a movie. So, it was
yeah, it
very,
did. In one scene, I'm flying my 5-foot Beamship Variation 5, and I'm shining laser beams on the axis of the lifter, actually the Beamship's side, above and below the wire, to detect ion movement above or below the wire. And there is some, but it's a very weak downwash. You can barely feel it. It's just amazing.
oh, okay. And now, with these lifters, you've also been demonstrating them for groups of people in the fields of Pennsylvania, right?
Beamship, Tim, sorry to interrupt. Beamships, lifters
Oh, I'm sorry.
implies a totally different methodology. I call my craft beamships.
Well, what would the real difference be between a lifter and a beam ship?
Well, a lifter, from what I've seen, is either a very small test device or a large multicellular device. My devices just use a large single cell for efficiency, and then inside the cell are structural struts and reinforcements, a framework cabin section, and a central payload tray on top for experiments.
Yeah, one of the things that had really impressed me about the beam ships, and I should apologize if I get that wrong from time to time, but the
Ah,
thing
don't apologize.
the thing I thought was highly impressive about those is that when the rest of the world was working with devices maybe 3.5 feet on each side, you were busy with a 9 footer that you can actually disassemble, store in your car, and then assemble for testing, in pretty much any given location. So that was one of the things that impressed me, was just the size when everybody else was working with these smaller devices. Did you?
Right, right. And once you get above 4 feet, you really can't carry them in a car anymore without disassembly. And the whole idea is, say you're a hobbyist, hobby enthusiast, radio control, model airplanes, etc. You want to take it down to the field and fly it, or out to the flying field. And I got that idea from seeing flyers fly right down the hill from me, the Valley Forge Flying Field. And they have these huge airplanes, some of them scale, some of them not, and they have the wings in 2 and 3 sections sometimes, and of course the wing separates from the fuselage with nylon bolts and that sort of thing. So and everything's all modular, but that's the only way to transport them rather. Uh, but that's what the flyers do, and I've been into model aircraft and radio control flying for about 32 years.
Well, your new project, though, which is kind of a big step away, and in some ways kind of a return home because you've been a Searle fan for a long time, is a glass SEG, right? Could you tell me a little
Yeah,
bit
Glass
about that?
SEG. I've been a Searle fan since I first heard about his work in late 1986. Got the Anti-Gravity Handbook that's compiled by David Hatcher Childress. And I was like, wait a minute, anti-gravity has been done already? Searle effect, what is this device? So I just started looking up articles and went right to the bibliography of that book and just started ordering library, and the internet really wasn't up at that time, but I just culled information from everywhere. I ordered books, papers. I went to the library and Xerox stuff, and I started to learn.
Oh, okay.
And went to Rex Research and got some important papers, and then finally got information right from the source in early 90s, 93.
Well,
So
and
the book came out by John Thomas.
for the glass SEG, I that's something that I've never seen a photo of. But can you describe it a little bit and what you expect to have terms of results once you fire it up?
Yeah, well, the glass SEG is simply a permanent magnet motor. And that motors itself, it's very similar to other permanent magnet motors that I've seen, including the Minato motor, the Howard Johnson's patent for his permanent magnet motor. There's another motor out that I've also built that I had a little trouble running, but I have to switch magnets on. I call the Mxlo permanent magnet motor. But basically, it's a glass or plexiglass disc that has a hole in the center, and it rides on a shaft and a bearing. And then it has all these disc magnets, like 8 of them, mounted about 3/4 of the way into the center of the disc. And then it has an arm, either 1 or 2, with disc magnets mounted on the end of the arm. And there's a spring, kind of soft tension spring, that is able to pull the arm back up. And on the disc, there are cams, and they can be made out of anything, really. And they just basically have a point where they rise up, and it pushes the arm down just at the edge of a passing magnet, which, of course, the repulsion causes the magnet to push away, and then the whole disc pushes away. Then, just after that point, the spring pulls the arm back up. Then another magnet comes by, the process is repeated, and so on, and so on, and so on. It's a little tricky, but with meticulous placing of the magnets and proper setting up of cam design, it can be done and work quite well. On the Searle site, if you join the site, there is a section which shows the glass SEG in full color. I first saw it when I first got Searle's book, Law of the Squares, Book 4, Searle Truth Tables, the Searle technology. And that has a picture on page, actually I'm looking at it right now, I pulled the page out of the book, page 407 of that book. It says Dream 1 States, and there's a picture of the glass SEG. That was built in Germany in 1989.
Oh, okay. Okay. And with the glass SEG, this is only partway on the quest for anti-gravity, right? This is just a power device and a larger version.
Right, this is just a device to show that you can get continuous rotation simply from magnetic repulsion. And the device works by simple magnetic repulsion, not attraction, simply repulsion.
Oh, so this device itself probably won't lift off, but a larger version with maybe...
No, this device, like the domestic SEG, if you mount smaller magnets on the periphery of the rotor and have a coil or coils mounted on, say, various places around the edge of the disc, you can generate free power. It's just the same thing you would do as if you dipped a paddle wheel in a stream.
Oh, okay.
As long as that stream is running, you're going to get free electrical energy if you hook that paddle wheel up to a dynamo. You could think of the constant flows in magnetic fields as a similar kind of river that you can, if you're smart about it, if you're a little ingenious, you can tap that the same way. But it's a little tricky, and a lot of people just give up. But I have a book by Paul Monis on permanent magnet motors, and it shows how to set up permanent magnet motor generators. And it's really, this technology is a real eye-opener. Some people say, well, you can't get work from permanent magnets because the force cancels out. I say, no, I disagree. If you take 2 ordinary ring magnets and have one on a pencil and put them on a pencil shaft, put another one with light polarity down on it, those magnets won't meet. The other magnet's getting pushed up and just hangs there, just hovers there, doing work basically because it's working against gravity. It's not being pulled down by gravity. It's just hovering there. The only thing holding it in place is a pencil. So you are really getting work from those magnets. Funny thing about magnets, the force of magnetism and the force of gravitation are very, very, very similar. where you can have, in fact, Tampere particulate knob has that gravity beam, where you can either have a beam that attracts or a beam that repels matter. They did experiments where they levitated a frog in magnetic fields and that sort of thing. So really what gravitation is, from all my study, are converging ether currents. Magnetic fields are simply ether currents also. Really, that's what you have in the basic final analysis is a curvature of space-time or the ether currents. Either of those analogies you could make work mathematically.
Yeah,
I'm tending more towards, since the last 15 years, toward the ether theory, which was, I think, discarded prematurely. But if you look in some more research, Einstein is quoted as saying there are, and I quote directly from Einstein, there are weighty arguments to the ether theory. In fact, the harmonics of general relativity could not exist without the ether. Says relativity without ether is unthinkable, unquote. And that's Einstein, who a lot of people revere.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, but he also said if one problem is found with either special or general relativity, you must discard the whole structure. You cannot, make tiny little adjustments. The structure will not stand. The house of cards will fall. This is a quote directly from the man. So I think people, don't do enough research and uncover those quotes and uncover, certain little things that lead us to believe that there's more out there than we're being taught. And in fact, whatever science can't explain can be explained. You just have to rework the theory. And a lot of people, including scientists, are just too intellectually lazy. The job seems, too, daunting, too monumental. But it's not. We just have to go about it. That's the only way we're going to advance, and we need to advance right now. And I think we are.
Yeah, you've definitely done a lot of work in terms of demonstrations for the public, and also in terms of hobbyist kits. And I think both of those things kind of help the popular consciousness to realize that these devices are out there. This technology is on its way into the mainstream. But and now, how would you say your hobby business is coming along? Because I know that you were selling Beamships for a while as kits.
Yes, I'm selling them. It's a little slow right now. I just have to concentrate on more advertising, more awareness, more print advertising, more website advertising, and I have to update my website, get it more professional looking. But the kits are out there, the power supplies are here, I've got them ready to sell, and, imagine, taking a 4-foot UFO to science class or science fair. I helped 3 Dearborn, Michigan high school students win the science fair with my Beamship last year, 2003, Detroit Metro Science Fair, Beamship Variation 1.
Yeah, that was the Russ Gibbs class, wasn't it? From
Yeah, Russ Gibbs. Yeah, I met him. He's a great guy, and he really, does great things with those kids and helps motivate them to do really incredible things. And, that's what I was trying to do. And so now I can say that Beamship is an award-winning design.
Oh, definitely. Well, and in addition to selling the kits, I guess I should probably ask what the price is on those. Just to get it on record. Do you have any kind of price range?
Yeah, price range, you can get a kit and power supply for around $200, $250, that sort of thing. You can get the price on the web, which is a bit more for the combo kit, but if you call me on my my cell phone number, which is also my business line, you can get a better price than what you see on the web. So give me a call. Don't hesitate. I'll answer any questions you have about this and similar technologies.
Oh, well, I should probably get a copy of your number then.
Yeah, my number is 484-255-1072.
Okay, and yeah.
And also the website is www.applielectrogravitics.com or Applied Electrogravitics.com. When I was just starting to get in this research in '87, my dad, who's a very learned man, he's an orthopedic surgeon, retired, sent me a book, a college textbook called Applied Electromagnetics. And most of the math in there, I sorry to say, is quite beyond me. I'm not a mathematician. I'm a theoretician and builder. But I said, well, we're doing electrogravitics. I'm doing electrogravitics, but I'm applying it. I'm not just theorizing. I'm applying it to model aircraft. I think the model aircraft people are the ones to approach first with this technology. Number one, it's a way of quote-unquote sneaking it through the back door before anybody can, shut it down. Not like I think anybody's going to shut it down. I think we live in a new, enlightened age in this 21st century. But also that the model airplane people are the first to snap up any new or perceived new and revolutionary technology, whatever that might be, because that's the nature of model aircraft and the full-size aircraft industry. I think the model aircraft industry is a lot less money involved, so things tend to be snapped up quicker. In fact, the first aircraft were model aircraft before manned flight took over.
Well, have you made any progress, or have you given any thought to moving towards selling the piezoelectric onboard power supplies? Because I know that a lot of people, one of the complaints about Beamships and lifters in the past has been that you have to run wires out to them while they're flying. And
right. Well, now we know exactly how much with the power to weight ratio we're getting right now, about 1 watt per gram or slightly under, with the piezoelectric power supply running at 12 volts. Actually, the input power 12 volts at 1 milliamp or slightly over 1 milliamp. We need 200 kV at 1 milliamp or 200 watts of electrical energy continuous.
Well, and that's not bad at all. That's not bad. That's
no, that's not bad at all. And that's only because our Beamships are so efficient. We use a large spark gap, so there's more power being used by the ship. If the gap was smaller, you'd have, number one, more ion wind, and number two, you'd have less electrogravitic thrust, which is kind of knocks the ion wind theory out of the lifter and Beamship argument. If ion wind was responsible, and when I raise the spark gap and we get less ion wind, there should be less thrust. Instead, there's more thrust and less power consumption, according to my meters on my commercial supply.
Well, and
so
I...
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. In comparison to my lifters, I can definitely tell you that with the additional weight of your struts, and the struts are just there as load-bearing members, they're not actually supporting weight like the actual lifting cells are, you're able to lift considerably more payload. My largest payload has been 1 pound, but I'm using a lot more power than you are, and I'm also dissipating a lot more energy through the lifter. So you're able to use one large cell.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of power is being wasted that would otherwise be used for propulsion and even more payload capacity.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
if we want to eventually have onboard power, that's the direction we have to go. Obviously, I mean, great, we can lift a lot of stuff with a lot of electrical energy, but we know that. I mean, basically, you could think of Searle's flying generator, as a big lifter.
Yeah, definitely.
The power is immense with that thing. I mean, we're talking 10 to the 12 volts at 1.5 milliamps. That's the nominal flight voltage. I mean, think of that much electrical energy in a small space. You're going to bend the heck out of space-time. And, of course, that's what gravitation is. So with that craft, I mean, they had generators and craft that were tied down with moorings that had pins that were supposed to hold 16 tons. They failed. Every type of mooring device has failed.
Oh, okay.
If you have it inside your house, it will, punch through the roof until it gets out, and then the house is no longer livable, which happened to Searle's first landlady's house.
Yeah,
big hit with the neighbors, of course.
I'm familiar with that story.
Yeah. Technology is, weight is not a factor when you're talking about that much electrical energy in one space. And the unique configuration of it is, the geometry of the field is you're producing a secondary gravitational field, where the Earth's field is the primary field. Just like German research, you're producing a secondary gravitational field, and that will basically, the Earth repels the vehicle at that point, and this is what Searle says. You're not lifting against the Earth, which is what the Beamships and lifters do, and producing universal force. If you flipped the IGV or Searle generator, upside down, it wouldn't make any difference. The Earth's field would still repel the craft. So what they do to keep the craft on the ground is biefeld-brown fashion. They charge up the upper and lower holes, which are isolated electrically, and they give a positive charge to the lower hull, and the upper hull gets a negative, simply to hold it on the ground while the SEG still running.
Oh,
So
okay.
it takes more energy to hold the thing on the ground than just to let it go shooting off into space.
Well,
This is what a lot of people don't understand.
the story that I'd heard also, and I actually like to use this as my reference for real anti-gravity as opposed to the smaller scale devices that I've been working with.
Yes, yes, yes. That I would consider Searle real anti-gravity. What the small-scale devices that we work with is simply a unidirectional force,
yeah, definitely.
which is definitely inertia-free and could probably lead to a really nice space drive. But ideally, we want to shoot for the Searle drive for obvious reasons.
Well, and I like to think of it as real anti-gravity. Not only does it take off, it takes the workbench with it. And the Searle device actually did that, or at least that's what the reports claim. Searle has been telling stories that his first, I think you'd mentioned it, when he was renting, the house was apparently destroyed as the thing flew
Oh
up through
yes,
the ceiling.
yes, that was his first landlady's house. Yeah, yeah. The generator and all attached parts become inertia-free at flight voltage. Yeah,
Another.
this is just an incredible technology, and it's really going to change a lot of things. It's been said before, and I'll just reiterate: electronics was the science of the 20th century. Electrogravitics and anti-gravity is the science of the 21st century, and probably this decade, more likely, early part of the next decade, we're going to use an electromagnetic drive, such as the Searle drive, to go to the moon in, like Searle said, in like 2 minutes, go to Mars in like less than an hour or a couple hours, probably the nearest star, because, when we're talking about electrogravitics, we're not talking rocketry where you have mass dilation, and the mass keeps building up, building up, building up, building up.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have the electronics, the electrical field cancels out all inertial mass. You still have gravitational mass, but you don't have any more inertial mass. So in effect, you're shielded from mass dilation.
Well,
Just as your craft is shielded from frictional skin heating by the same bow wave, actually 64 bow waves from the 64 flight cells at the rim, and also the new designs of 64 rim needles. And electrical charge escapes very readily from pointed surfaces. So you want electrical negative ion ejection from the rim. The generator has a configuration of pretty much Faraday's unipolar dynamo, positive at the center, highly negative at the rim.
Well, are you worried at all when you fire the glass SEG up? Are you worried about the potential consequences, especially living in an apartment and presumably doing some testing there? Are you worried that it
No,
may...
no, no, not at all, because the power generated by the glass SEG, there's no power generated if you don't have magnets at the rim of the device and coils. It's just going to rotate there like a pinwheel in the wind.
I've heard, interestingly, one of the reasons that this actually came up when I talked to John Thomas. He'd said that the thing that actually made the SEG take off was Searle was trying to limit it by putting a high resistance on it. And apparently, at least Searle's claim is, that the high resistance is what made it take off. It actually sent the SEG, into a superconducting mode. So possibly, it seems like you're saying the same thing, where if you let it free rotate...
The thing with the SEG is that unlike a conventional generator, when you load up a conventional generator, in other words, when you put more load on a conventional generator, it'll do two things. It'll get hotter, and it'll slow down.
Yeah, definitely.
SEG is totally different. When you put a load on it, the more load you put on it, the faster it gets and the colder it gets. Eventually, you put enough load on it, if it's just allowed to pour its power out into the atmosphere, that could be considered a load. It's going to get really, really cold. Around 4 degrees Kelvin, the generator and all parts attached to it become inertia-free, and the materials that the generator is comprised of lift in this world of very, very cold. But neodymium, which is the core element, the central element of all the plate magnets, that's the rings, and the core element of all the rollers, becomes a superconductor at that temperature. And a lot of weird things happen with superconductors, especially rotating superconductors, as we know. Now, the minimum speed of the inner rollers is about 200 miles per hour. So you can imagine, the incredible speed of this thing. But throughout, there's no noise, no heat, no vibration, no consumption of oxygen. It's just, one could power blocks of houses, but you'd have to make sure you don't put too much load on it, of course, or it'll tear free of any mooring and, you'll lose it forever.
Definitely.
That's what happened.
One of the things that I've thought,
Yeah.
I've had this idea for a while that these devices, because the SEG isn't the only device that runs cold, and it's not the only device that seems to bend space. I did a correlation study.
Well, you have a Sweets VTA, that's Floyd Sparky Sweets Vacuum Triode Amplifier, and that operates the same way, which Tom Bearden was witness to, these experiments where you put a load on it, that same thing, you put an increasing load on it, it gets colder and gets lighter.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is now that we can correlate these, like I've done in my study, we can look on the internet and comparing claims from a variety of different devices. We can see that these groups of people who had never had access to each other's research, or at least had very limited access in the past, not only do the major effects have similarities, but a lot of the side effects have similarities, and that's really one of the big pluses for the SEG. I'd actually written off the SEG a while ago and came back to it, and the reason that I came back to it and had to take another look was really because, I had seen this correlation study. When I completed that, I started to see side effects between these different devices, and it was more than just coincidence.
They have the same correlations and the same or similar side effects. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they're tapping into neg entropy, the river of an energy, the Dirac sea, the Fermi sea, the luminiferous ether they used to call it in the 19th century. This is a field of energy that's fundamentally beyond all the fields of energy we use in our everyday lives, but yet it's fundamentally unknown in our science and is not taught in our institutions, and that's a shame. And I think that's going to change after we finish some of the work we're going to be finishing later on this year.
Well, Russell, I actually have to wrap things up, but I appreciate your time, and I definitely like to interview you again if we get the chance.
Anytime, man.
Okay.
Say when.
Well, have a nice evening.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks again.
Okay. Bye.